You know that feeling, right? When you feel completely and utterly stuck. Like you're just rigid, repeating the same patterns, and you just can't seem to change, no matter how much you want to. It's this universal and honestly super frustrating experience. And we usually tell ourselves a story about it, right? We say we're being lazy or resistant, but what if that whole story is just wrong? What if being stuck isn't a feeling at all, but a function? Let's get into it. So yeah, this is the big question. Whether we're talking about you, your team at work, or even a whole company, why do we hit these walls where change feels absolutely impossible? The usual suspects are always the same, and they almost always point the finger right back at us. I mean, just think about the words we use. On one side, we call it laziness, resistance, avoidance. We're basically blaming our own character. But what if there's a totally different way to look at it? A structural view that sees it not as some kind of personal failing, but as a system, just managing its capacity, trying to preserve its own coherence, and responding to some very real constraints. So, which view is the right one? Well, according to this structural model, that common view, the one that blames our personality or our willpower, is, to put it simply, inaccurate. It's a complete misreading of what's actually going on under the hood. So let's start right there with this common misreading. We're going to break down why we so often mistake a system's automatic structural response for a personal intentional choice. We see someone doing the same thing over and over, so we call it habit. We see a narrowing of options. Oh, that's avoidance or rigidity. A system that's just holding its ground, that's resistance. We might even try to soften it and call it a preference. But in every single one of these cases, we're slapping a personal label on what is actually a deeply impersonal mechanical process. And here it is. This is the core shift in thinking you have to make. The behavior we call stuck is not about what a system wants to do, it's about the constraints it's being forced to operate under. It isn't choosing to be stable, it's automatically doing it because, frankly, it has no other choice. Okay, so if it's not laziness or resistance, then what in the world is it? Well, it's a fundamental process, and it's called stabilization. And this is the central idea we really need to wrap our heads around. All right, so here's the formal definition. Stabilization is what a system, and that could be your brain, a relationship, a company, does to survive when it's under way too much pressure or load. It automatically starts to reduce complexity and just hunkers down. It's a protective mechanism, plain and simple. So, and this is absolutely crucial, this whole process is not about getting better. The system is not trying to optimize itself or grow or improve. No. Stabilization is about conservation. It's about preserving coherence, staying in one piece. And when you get right down to it, it's about survival. Exactly. It's pure conservation. You can think of it like your phone switching to low power mode. It's not trying to run new apps or do fancy new things. It's just trying to conserve its battery, its integrity, its core functions in the face of overwhelming demands. It's just trying not to break. Okay, so how does a system actually pull this off? What are the specific mechanics of stabilization? How does it manage to stay coherent when all this pressure is on? Well, it happens in a few pretty predictable ways. First, the system starts to shut out new, unpredictable information. It puts on the blinders. Then, it starts sticking to familiar, well-worn pathways because they're just less costly to use. It also reduces how often it changes states or modes. And finally, it doubles down on its core identity anchors to make its choices simpler. And what does all of this look like from the outside to us? It looks like repetition. That's it. When you see yourself or someone else falling into the exact same loop over and over again, you are literally watching stabilization happen in real time. You're seeing the system find a low-cost, predictable pathway just to manage its load. And this right here, this might be the most important takeaway of all. Predictability is cheaper than novelty. A system under that much strain just can't afford the energy cost of trying something new. And let me say it again. This is not a moral failing. It is structural economy. The system is just being ruthlessly efficient in order to survive. But of course, this incredible survival mechanism, it doesn't come for free. There's a price to pay for staying coherent when you're under pressure. There is a fundamental structural trade-off that's happening. And here's that trade-off laid out. In the short term, yeah, the system gets exactly what it needs, protection from collapse. The world becomes predictable, and you stay intact. But the long-term cost, the mortgage you take out on that safety, is huge. You lose adaptability, you stop learning, and your flexibility just vanishes, which makes you way more brittle down the road.
And again, it is so important to get this. This is not the system making a mistake. It's making the only trade-off it can. It's sacrificing future flexibility for immediate survival. When you're at your limit, it's a necessary bargain.
So all of this brings us to the most practical and, I think, empowering part of this whole idea. If stabilization is a structural process and not a personal flaw, then our entire approach to it has to change. You don't fight it, you learn to read it.
The old mindset was to just apply more pressure, right? To try and force change, because we just assumed the person was being unwilling. The new mindset is to use this stuckness as a diagnostic tool, to step back and ask, okay, where are the system's limits? Where is the load highest? This isn't unwillingness, it's a system at capacity.
So when you read it, what does it actually tell you? Well, a pattern of stabilization is like a dashboard for the system's health. It is a map showing you exactly where the pressure is greatest, where the connections are starting to break down, and how close the whole thing is to a critical tipping point. It's not noise. It's incredibly valuable data. And this is exactly why that old mindset is so dangerous. If you try to force change on a system that is already stabilizing just to stay afloat, you are not going to get growth. You're going to get fractures. You risk a total collapse. The system wasn't resisting you. It was trying to prevent its own disintegration.
And we're going to end on this final, really powerful idea. The next time you feel stuck or you see it in someone else, try to resist that urge to see it as a problem you need to solve with more force or more willpower. Instead, see it as a structure that you need to read. Ask yourself, what is this behavior telling me about the constraints and the pressures on the system? Answering that question, well, that changes everything.